going to talk about lion hunting. My son and I spent quite a number of years back hunting lions together. We always hunted lions together. Once in a while I was by myself, but all of our actual kills on lions and whatnot been when we were together. We had several wonderful dogs and had some wonderful experiences. I'll go into one experience in particular. We drove road looking for a track to cross the road with about 9 or 10 inches of snow on the ground. Nice big lion track come across the road, and the lion track headed down to the river. Well, I had hip boots, but my son Landon didn't have hip boots. He had good hunting boots on. We waded the river and took our two dogs across the river onto this lion track. Well, once we got across the river, the lion just kind of wandered for a little bit and headed up a fairly steep ridge, long ways to the top. Well, lions almost invariably, when they go somewhere, they got to go to the top of a ridge and down the other side and up the other side. This is the nature of lions. And you better have lung power, you better have leg power, and a lot of go in you, and everything you need to be able to sustain you, for the day, as far as something to drink and something to eat. The dogs can always lick snow and one thing another, and we always took along, some snacks for the dogs. But we took this lion track way up a ridge, kind of into a bench. And this lion track, there was nothing else. Gets to the top of the ridge, now there's elk tracks. This is where the action began. That lion come over the ridge, and there were 7 elk bedded in just kind of a little flat in the top of the ridge. Well, the lion made the approach to one of these elk, and the elk got up. And the lion, obviously by the sign in the snow of the tracks, that lion jumped that elk. Well, the elk was moving. The elk wasn't standing still when it jumped it. The lion held on to that elk's back. That elk ran down the other side of that mountain for 750 yards. All the time with this lion on its back. And when it got down about 100 yards or something short of 750 yards, lions, how they kill their quarry, they'll bite right in the back of the neck here, right at the base of the head. And they'll bite in there, and they'll sever that spinal cord. A lion has got a catch claw, and they run that paw around the front end of the nose of that elk and snap that elk's neck like that. It was all right there. 2 great big fir trees. They're this far apart. I'm talking about trees this big around. The elk is up against those 2 fir trees, deader than a mackerel, and we felt that elk's neck. Its neck was broke. There's lion tracks all over. That lion made a pretty good feed off of that elk. Probably fed 20 pounds off of that elk. And that lion started off of that elk and went this way. And then it kind of come back in. It did this 3 or 4 times. We had an extremely smart dog, a walker dog. Had a Plott hound with us. And they were both working this track. The Plott hound was really a bear dog, but the walker dog, Chris, was a very good lion dog. could tree any lion that ever lived all by herself. We walked out and out and out on these tracks. And finally, Chris lined out on the track. The track finally cut out and it headed out. I think the lion was trying to fool a dog if it picked up his track, is what I think it was really doing. I think this lion may have been, you know, treed previously, and anyway, Chris stayed on that track, and she just kept running that track and running that track, and Chris didn't have to run right in the track. She'd run about that far from the actual track in the snow, picking up the scent. And she run that lion for probably, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that. And they went down over a ridge. Of course, when they pick up one of these tracks, they start, you know, they're baying and they're baying. And after about a half hour, she started barking treed. The Plott hound, he was barking. Tigger, we called him Tigger. And anyway, we were in pretty deep snow by this time, down off that leeward side. We were up to about our knees in places. And we got down there, and up there about 45, 50 feet up, at least that far up a fir tree, is this lion, this male lion. And anyway, we looked at the lion, took a picture or two. I put a leash on each one of the dogs in case the lion come out of the tree with some fight and wanted to take one of the dogs. I couldn't handle that. I didn't want one of the dogs hurt. And each one of us took a leash. And we got the dogs back. I got at a perfect angle, and with my 44 Magnum 5-inch Smith & Wesson, I shot that cat out of the tree at about 50 feet up off the ground. Killed the cat instantly, and it hit the ground with a thud. As soon as it hit the ground, Chris ran up and grabbed a hold of the fur on that lion and shook it all over, you know, to make sure that there wasn't a lick of life in it at all. It was dead as can be. And she was quite protective. She didn't want Tigger. You know, we had to pull her back so Tigger could get in and do his thing on this lion. We skinned the lion, and now this was an absolutely all day adventure. We got back just only a couple of minutes before dark. Wore out and tired, but it was one of the most fantastic adventures because of how this all happened to do with that elk and that lion and what went on.